Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. This week, some deliveries that have arrived at my doorstep over the last week or two. Two of them from estates, I've got to be honest, I didn't even know existed. One I didn't know too well, and one I do know rather well indeed. I'll start with the first of those, and because I really love getting presents, as my wife will tell you, at Christmas and on birthdays, I am at my happiest. I've left this in its full packaging, and this was hand delivered by a guy called Eugene Kinghorn. Now, if you're a follower of obscure rugby detail, you might recognise the name. Eugene played a bit of rugby for Western Province, probably 15 years ago or so. Very talented rugby player at a time when there were a lot of very talented rugby players, so we didn't see as much of him as he might have liked, but he's now found another niche away from the rugby field, and that is with the world of wine. And he dropped off some of the 1679 Stellenbosch Bushvine Chenin Blanc that he makes at Koelenhof, the wine estate at which he is the marketing manager. And I haven't actually seen it yet, so I'm opening this from scratch. Really nice packaging. There's a nice old classical feel to it, and I get to unwrap it twice because there is the paper in there as well. So it just looks really good, and as much as you might claim that we don't judge books by covers or wine by labels or packaging, I think we're all human, and subconsciously, and in some cases consciously, we will be swayed by the look and feel of a particular wine, and this has got a really nice look and feel. So it's a nice big heavy bottle. The label you might just be able to pick up has been embossed, so it's got a really classy and authentic feel. And the important part here is that bush vine. These are old bush vines. I think these were planted in about 1982, so coming up for 4 decades worth. And it's a wine that we're starting to really celebrate in South Africa. We make more Chenin Blanc in South Africa than anybody in the world, partly because of that history of making loads of Chenin for Brandewijn, but we've also found that although you can make some cheap and nasty stuff out of Chenin, you can make some absolutely sensational stuff. And while Pinotage is the grape for which South Africa is perhaps most associated in terms of heritage, I think it is Chenin Blanc that in the not too distant future we really will see as South Africa's flagship varietal and the one in which we lead world production. We do already in terms of volume, but making it a standout wine that people immediately associate with South Africa. Bottle open, you saw the wax on top there. Cork is out. That's the thing about old Chenin, it's just so irresistible on the nose. So your journey with this wine, which I suppose starts with the packaging, which is lovely, but once it comes to the wine itself, it's creamy and rich and luscious and just screams out drink me in vast volumes. And I'm generally quite happy to agree with that. Oh, that is a delight. It's got a beautiful, rich, creamy texture to match what you pick up on the nose. You can feel a seam of citrus running through it. It's just luscious. It's that's a perfect word for it, that. What I also like about it, and what I like about the better Chenins, of which we have so many now in South Africa, is that aging potential as well. So this is not made in 1679, it's made in 2017. I'm not sure it would last the 400 odd years that we see from 1679, but it's definitely got a good few years, possibly even decades in it, to age and to grow and to develop further. Drinking delightfully now already, but I've got another bottle or two of this. I'm going to keep them aside and bring them out in 3 or 4 years and see where they've gone. But until then, I'll have a great deal of fun finishing this one. Our second one is the first of those that I hadn't actually heard of. I did know the winemaker through her work in her previous job. She used to be the winemaker at Lozärn. She is Suzanne Coetzee, and she gives us Nuiba, and I think I've pronounced that right. Nuiba is the name of the farm on which she grew up in Namibia, and if you go to her website, she speaks very evocatively, very passionately about where she grew up, running around barefoot, real farm life in Namibia. It sounded like an idyllic childhood that's a world away from the city life that my kids now grow up in, and she's poured a whole lot of heart and passion into a wine that I'm really lucky to have, because this first post from Nuiba is one of just 360 bottles, and she very kindly sent me one. So Suzanne, thank you, I'm very grateful, and I'm also very excited about drinking it because it's a blend that generally I really like, especially when I'm cooking, when I'm eating, and that is a Semillon Sauvignon blend. Wines from the grapes from the Stellenbosch area that she has then made and created in one of the 4 wines, her first, second, third and fourth posts, and this is one I'm particularly excited about. You can see there's a lot of colour to that Semillon probably coming through just a little darker than the Sauvignon might. 2018, so still a very young wine, and you can feel the freshness on the nose, but good freshness. Oh, that's really interesting. That's probably the Semillon coming through a little stronger. It's almost sort of a caramelish feel to it. It's got a gentle sweetness, not that cloying sweetness you sometimes get in overly sweet wine, but it sits really comfortably on the palate. And while I don't generally like those wine labels that give you the exact detail of where the wine should go in a culinary setting, pairs perfectly with lightly seared tuna and cranberries on an autumn afternoon, I can feel that this would do great service to a curry. It's got that acidity to cut through it, but also that boldness of flavour. And again, much like that chenin, much like so much of our South African wine, definitely got time to age a little as well. So I'll age another bottle if I can get hold of it, but only 360. I suspect they may well have sold out. It's about 210 rand a bottle, if I'm not mistaken. A little more expensive than that previous Chenin. That goes for about 175 rand. So these are slightly more expensive white wines, not everyday drinking, but wines that, in this case, a lot have gone into a very small batch production, and so you are paying for both the rarity of the wine and the unique nature of it, but also for some pretty good quality. Wine number 3 this week is the second of the wines that I just did not know existed, but I do now, and I also know it's got a great story, and I'm a sucker for a great story around wine. So the label is Lozärn. And if you know your German and if you know Switzerland, you'll know that Lozärn is the German name for Lucerne. I've spent a little bit of time in Lucerne. I've been there for Carnival. Carnival in Switzerland throws out the window those thoughts that the Swiss are a very drab and boring and humorless lot. Carnival in Switzerland is as good a party as I've been to. Even the Brazilians could learn something from the carnival that they have in Lucerne in particular. And the reason that it is Lozärn or Lucerne is because the grandmother of the family who owned this particular estate had to escape to Switzerland during World War II and spent time growing up in Lucerne. She had very fond memories of it. Granny Kay, I think, was her name. She then arrived in South Africa, was a duck farmer, and she actually has a wine named after her from the estate. They've got a Bordeaux blend that is, I think it's called Kay's Legacy. But this is particularly interesting because this is a Carmenère rosé. And if you're not sure what Carmenère is, well, it's a grape. And it's a grape quite similar to Merlot. In fact, when it was discovered in Chile, it was mistaken for Merlot for some time. And people didn't know it actually existed because they thought that all of the examples of this grape had died out in Europe. But they found it in Chile, and that in turn was found by Salome, who's the winemaker, discovered the Carmenère while over there in 2012, and tasted it, loved it, thought, right, I want to bring this back to South Africa. And so Lucerne in the Robertson area has the only full vineyard, I think it was certainly the first full vineyard of the Carmenère grape. Now they do a Carmenère itself. I've got a bottle of that which I'll taste in due course. It's quite an expensive bottle, it's about 450 rand, but it's a grape that you don't really see outside of Chile, and so to see it in South Africa is particularly exciting. So I'm really looking forward to tasting it. I love Chile, I've spent some time there. Liz and Felipe, good friends of mine from Chile, introduced me some terrific Chilean wine, and so I have fond memories of them as I get to open the rosé from those Carmenere grapes, which is a lovely deep colour and which looks very appealing indeed. Oh, now that's very different to a lot of rosé I've had. There's a nice marzipan feel to the nose, but then when you drink it, I reckon on a blind tasting, I would probably have thought that this was actually a red wine. It's got a little more depth, a little more weight than you'll often get with a rosé, which I don't think is totally surprising, because the path we're seeing rosé take is away from the stuff that would give you diabetes with half a glass, and instead onto stuff that's more serious, that's got more poise to it, and that's made as a classier, more elegant drink, and not just a throwaway by the side of the pool or on your beach holiday. I think also because it's a Carmenere grape, it does have that very distinctive and slightly different feel to it. I really like that. It's very interesting, and it not only has me wanting to drink some more of it, but also to try out that Carmenere itself, the red wine, and possibly see how these compare. So I might hang on to this and open some of that a little later on over dinner tonight. But a lovely grape, and also it's just such a cool and exciting story. Roots in Switzerland, now in the Robertson area, and a selection of wine with a great deal of history to it in terms of how they've named it and what they've decided to make, and this touch of Chile. I think Liz and Felipe, if you are watching this, and this is doing Chilean wine great credit. And then to the final wine for this week. The home of Shiraz is what Zandvliet would refer to themselves as, and with fairly good reason. They make a lot of Shiraz, and they make some very good Shiraz. I've been to Zandvliet on many occasions. They've always been very kind, and not just given me some great tastings, but also allowed me to buy some of their vintage stock. So I've got some 10-15-year-old Shiraz from Zandvliet floating around. I remember their 2003 Shiraz with particular fondness. Drop by on the Absa Cape Epic each year and get to pick some up. This is top of the range in terms of the Zandvliet Shiraz. You're looking here at about 220 rand a bottle or thereabouts for some of the finest Shiraz from the Robertson area. You'll see that kalkveld, or the chalk soil, the chalky terroir, the limestone that they have in that Robertson area. It tends to lend itself to a Chardonnay in terms of your immediate thinking. Take the limestone hill from de Wetsoff, which is not too far from Zandvliet, but it also has a really strong impact on their Shiraz, and I know the winemaker at Zandvliet is particularly keen on pointing out that it is the terroir and that limestone soil, the chalky soil, that lends itself to the distinctive feel of this particular wine. Now, I had some of their more regular Shiraz. There we go, it looks lovely. I had some more of their more regular Shiraz last week. I was up at Safari Plains in the Mabula Reserve, enjoying some wildlife, and we had a bottle of their 2015 Shiraz, and it drank really nicely, as it always does. It's exactly the kind of bottle you want sitting around in the kitchen, midweek, grab a glass of wine, nothing too expensive, but always delivers. It's a banker in that sense. So this should take it up a level in terms of how they perceive their wines. Let's see if it does. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I would have on a blind tasting picked up and gone, this tastes like a Shiraz that probably comes from grapes planted on limestone soil. But knowing that that is the case with these, it explains why there is that distinctive taste. It feels a little bit lighter than some Shirazes, and it's still nice and smooth. I actually like both of them. I really enjoy the regular Shiraz as well, but this is maybe just a tiny little bit smoother, and also I think got a little bit of time to go. It's 4 years old already, but I'd probably give it another year or two, although it's certainly drinking pleasantly now. And it's a great spot to drop in at. They've got some cool artwork. They've got a nice little tasting room, and they've just got loads and loads and loads of Shiraz. And there's always an opportunity to taste all manner of wine, but in particular the range of Shiraz that they do have. So thank you to Zandvliet for dropping off a couple of these, and to the guys from Lozärn and Nuiba and Eugene and his team at Koelenhof. I always love getting the new wine because each bottle has got a different journey, they've got a different story, and then new discoveries. And it's something I really do urge people to do. We all have our favourites. There's that bottle of wine you love, and you tend to go back to those favourites, and certainly don't discard them, but try some new stuff every now and again. And with the quality of wine we have in South Africa, it really does make sense to broaden your horizons and taste some of the extraordinary quality that is out there. And one of the better ways to do that, nip over to Pick and Pay. If you join the wine club there, it's 20% off during the course of any month, with a selection of fantastic wine, and online a whole pile of great wine you can order and have delivered straight to your door. Happy shopping, happy drinking. See you next week. Cheers.